border. I believe what is happening on the border today is intentional.
We have people in the United States of America that breed children in order to sell them.
Our own government is facilitating the absolute destruction of the American immigration system, and I can prove it point by point. I'm unafraid to speak the truth. This is just data-driven and experience-driven.
It was quite the takedown, captured on deputies' body cameras. One by one, 40 men were arrested in Marion County, accused of showing up to meet what they thought were children as young as 13 for sex. Marion County Sheriff Billy Woods did not hold back.
Every one of them knew that they were making an arrangement to meet with a child.
This week-long undercover sting involved multiple agencies, including the state attorney and the attorney general's office. Investigators say these men allegedly showed up with illegal drugs, guns, and contraceptives.
To go after young kids, there is no defense, there is no justification, there is no excuse.
Among those arrested, a retired Army sergeant, a UF student on a visa, and men from countries like Mexico, Jamaica, India, and El Salvador.
My goal is to make it clear that we do not, Marion County and the 5th Judicial Circuit, and truthfully in the entire state of Florida, as I'm pretty sure as the general is going to make abundantly clear, we do not tolerate this crime.
The sheriff's office says these men were using multiple social media apps to contact children. They say the biggest offender was Snapchat, and now they plan to pursue legal action. The Attorney General has one final message to parents.
You are the first line of defense, and if you do not know what your kids are doing online, you got to figure it out.
Covering Marion County in Ocala, Spencer Tracy, West 2 News.
Sheriff Woods says the investigation is still happening and more arrests could be coming.
Stone County Sheriff's deputies arrested Cesar Gonzalez for rape and sexual abuse of a 14-year-old. Gonzalez is being held without bond. Immigration and Customs Enforcement put a hold on Gonzalez due to his citizenship status.
An update here on a story we've been following. A man charged with raping women in a rape dungeon on wheels takes a plea bargain. Eduardo Sarabia took the plea today in Pomona. He was facing 80 years in prison for rape. His attorney told him his alleged victims were outside court ready to testify, so he agreed to a deal with 25 years in prison. Our Haley Winslow broke that story when it happened, and since her original report, his niece and 2 other victims have come forward, making for a total of 2 children and 3 adult victims. Sarabia is an undocumented immigrant, and the case was highlighted by President Trump when he talks about deporting criminal aliens.
The Brunswick County Sheriff's Office arrested a man who is accused of an unusual sex crime. According to the Sheriff's Office website, 34-year-old Jose Luis Gomez Espinal was booked yesterday. He is charged with 4 counts of sexual contact or penetration under the pretext of medical treatment. According to warrants, one incident dates back to last year, and the latest incident was Tuesday. The website says his bond for each count was $500,000. The website also notes a, quote, ICE detainer for the Brunswick County Sheriff's Office dated today.
47-year-old Apolinar Lopez Honorado seen handcuffed sitting in the back of a Stewart police car Wednesday morning. Officers say just days ago, a mother called police after her 14-year-old daughter confided in her about an upsetting encounter with Honorado.
The mother explained to Stewart police officers on the scene that the daughter reported some inappropriate touching that took place.
Detectives say Honorado was living in the same house as the victim's family, renting a separate room inside. And here's where this case takes another turn. Investigators say Honorado is in the U.S. illegally, and this isn't the first time.
What I do know is simply that he has been deported in the past. That we do know. Where he's from, how long ago he was deported, I don't have that information.
Police have alerted U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. They say his illegal re-entry raises questions about how he was able to return after being deported. Meanwhile, detectives are encouraging parents to talk to their kids because there could be more victims.
Welcome to Truth with J.J. Carroll. Tough topic that has to be discussed. I have an incredible guest, Ali Hopper. She's going to come on in just a few minutes. And I know you're like, okay, I've heard that name. When you see her face, you'll absolutely tie it together. She has testified that I know of 2 times in front of Congress, congressional testimony on focusing on the child trafficking across the globe, across America, but more specifically, the NGOs, the federal government over the last 4 years under Joe Biden, and the catastrophe they caused. And it's shocking. And she's going to give you statistics, and she's going to give you data, and it's going to be unnerving. And you're going to hear what she says, and I'm going to ask her some questions that I know that I want her opinion on. And when you hear the questions I ask and the answers that she gives, you are going to have many, many questions. But one of the questions you're going to ask yourself is, how in God's name did our government do this? There's no way they could not have known this was happening. How did they allow this to happen? I have a video. It's going to be hard for you to listen to. Okay? This is a woman. Someone called the police, and the police are running through, it looks like they parked, maybe running down a hill, like a little embankment. And you hear the woman being raped. The man is beginning to rape her, and she's screaming to the police, "Here I am. Oh, dear God, here I am." We did a show yesterday with Kim Yater about who are we as a nation? Who are we as a nation right now? Do you honestly look at our nation right now and say, we're the same nation we were 10, 20, 30 years ago? Honestly. Has rapes and pedophilia, murders, assault, have they happened throughout history? Yes, absolutely. There seems to be a surge of evil in America. And I'm curious to speak with Miss Hopper Ali, because I want to hear what her take is. Because when you're in this world of law enforcement, and more specifically child trafficking, your mind gets shaped a certain way, because you see things that you will never, ever unsee. You will discover and do research and speak to people, and that research and those discussions, they're not going to fade away. It's not like you're going to grow old and you're going to stop thinking about them. You're going to think about them all the time. That's just the truth. I don't care how I get desensitized from it all. It's still there. I know it is. How do I know? Because it pops up randomly in my mind. Because it's so grotesque. It's so evil. That doesn't just hide in your brain. It forces its way to consciousness because it is so grotesque. We see these men that I just showed you on these clips. And I could have shown you clips a week straight. Just a week. Illegal alien this, illegal alien that, open border this. U.S. citizens are coming to rape 13-year-old girls. I mean, I could just go on ad nauseum and never hit the bottom. Like, I'm just falling, like you see in a movie, you fall in, someone falls into like a black abyss and they're falling and they're just falling and falling. And you're like, I'm never going to hit bottom. That's how I feel. I know this because I know it through my understanding, my experience in law enforcement. I'm not going to hit bottom. I'm going to dig and dig and dig, and I'm going to arrest and arrest and arrest, and it does not matter. There's too many of them. Before I play this video, I want you to know the people that I spoke to, in my experience, and people that I know that run sex task forces in the FBI and et cetera, they tell me, when you peel back the layer, like you peel back the curtain of pedophilia and child trafficking and child abuse and sex trafficking, sex abuse of all type, particularly pedophiles, when you pull that curtain back or you peel that first layer, they say you are going to be stunned. Stunned at the depth and the width, meaning millions and millions and millions. One of the most stunning things that happened to me is I'm interviewing these people. And I interviewed two people specifically. One was a FBI agent that ran a task force for child trafficking, and then a man that runs a nonprofit child rescue. And I asked them both, independent of each other. I said, I'm president. I hire you. You're like my child trafficking czar. How many law enforcement officers do you need to begin? And I'm thinking, okay, this guy's going to tell me 5, 10,000 if I get deputies. It still shocks me. And I'm a guy that's rarely ever shocked. Independently, they tell me each, not knowing that the other even exists. They said, I'll start with 500,000. No, what did you say? Yeah, I need 500,000 to start. And then once we really dig in, I'll be able to tell you if I need more or less or whatever, but 500,000 to start. I was like, hold on. It's that bad? Oh, that's how bad I know it is. So I need 500,000. But when I start digging, I know I'm going to need more. Oh, yeah. Before I bring Ali in, I want to play this video that I talked about, because I showed you these men, and you don't see the young victims, right? You don't see the women being raped. You don't hear them because they arrested them prior to the rape or after the rape. Nobody hears, and this is why I picked this clip, because it grabbed me, because I was like, my audience needs to hear the horror. They need to hear it. It's not fun to listen to, but I want you to hear the desperation, the exhaustion, the fear of this woman that's about to be raped. Go ahead and play this, please, Thomas.
Hey.
He's trying to rape me. Can you help
Get off her now.
Help me.
Get off her now.
Give us the channel.
Thank God. Thank God.
Don't you fucking move. Don't you fucking move.
Come here, dear. Come here. You're good. 21 says to clear the channel. Come here. We're good. We're here. We're here. We're here. We're here. We're here.
Thank you, Lord. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Jesus.
We got a male secured.
He's trying to rape me.
Copy of Florida tag, please.
Oh, thank you, Lord.
And when you watch the video,
Kind of brings it home. Kind of makes it more real, doesn't it? Illegal alien. Crazy world. Crazy world. I have Ali Hopper she is the president of Guard Against Trafficking. Thomas, before we bring her in, can you please play her latest? It's about a minute of her 5-minute testimony of her latest time in Congress, which I believe was the end of last week or beginning of this week. I believe it was the end of last week. And listen to what she tells you, and then we're going to bring her in. Can you play this for us, Thomas, please?
Administration, while they were letting all of these unaccompanied minors into the country, and as we've talked about today, they weren't keeping track of them, they issued these kids a hotline that they could call if they had trouble with the sponsor family that they were put with. And you're saying that 65,000 calls to this hotline designated to protect these kids went unanswered? Is that what you're telling this committee?
Yes, sir. One case where A child's call was reporting that grown men were coming into his room at night and they were touching him. Nothing happened with that call. That call went unanswered until this administration took office, went through those 65,000 calls, made follow-ups, conducted a welfare check, and now that child has been rescued and that sponsor has been arrested. These are the safeguards that were put in place, but accountability and oversight was not had. I said that it was easier to get a child, yes, than to adopt a dog. You actually had to provide more paperwork to adopt a pet from a pet shelter than you did to sponsor a child.
Holly, please welcome to the show. I'm very excited to talk to you about this topic. How are you doing today?
Doing well. How are you, JJ?
I'm doing well. You know, every time that I talk about this, I don't even know the adjective or the verb, like I'm excited or I'm interested. I don't even know, right? And I don't know how you feel about this either. And this is one of the things that I want to talk to you about is before we get into your testimony and the NGOs and the solutions, I just want to ask you, from somebody that is in this world to someone else that is deeply in this world, what are your thoughts? What are your day-to-day feelings on this? Is it overwhelming? Does it, you need a break? Do you feel like throwing up? What are your day-to-day feelings?
That's a loaded question, JJ, and it's a really good question. It's hard. I mean, people see us on TV, you know, doing interviews, the lights, the cameras, but they don't see the weight that it really puts on us behind the scenes, what we have to see, the stories that we hear about, the stories that we see happening, unfolding in front of us. And really it's heavy, but my faith, I'm Christian and I have a strong faith in God that he put me here. He put others here on this path to be a voice for the voiceless and to fight for these men, women, and children who don't have a voice. And that really it is our duty to stand up for them in the ways that they can't. It's modern day slavery, and we are doing everything that we can to combat this. But it is tough. I'm a Hispanic, I'm a mother, I'm a wife. And so a lot of times it's really hard to come home and kind of reset and say, okay, now I got to put on the mom hat today, or I got to put on, you know, the community member hat today. And it really is surreal to kind of plug back into everyday operations once you go into some of these horrifying realities and then try and reinsert yourself into everyday society. It's really hard to kind of, you know, go between the two. But again, it is our calling, and that we need to be a voice for these people.
When you say you're a Christian, so I want to go down this, and I know we have a lot that we want to talk about. I think this is as important, right? It is be able to talk about this. So I'm a Christian too. When you begin to see these things in real time and see the videos and talk to people and testify about it and do your research, is it hyperbole to say that there is evil, meaning that Satan is roaming the earth right now? Or do you think that I'm off, that I'm too sensitive about that, and that's hyperbole to say that there's evil in Satan?
I think that there really is evil in the world roaming around right now, and whatever your faith is, I mean, I would see it as satanic, but whatever your faith is, whatever you want to call that evil, it's evil. It's still a darkness, a dark energy. And when you look in the eyes of a trafficker, we interview incarcerated traffickers many times. And when you look into the eyes of these people, and what's staring back at you is someone that's empty, someone that's almost soulless. And the way that they look at human beings is as a commodity and money and power. And when you look in the eyes of these people, when you look in the eyes of the buyers, the Johns and Janes, and then you look at the aftermath of what this crime, this atrocity does to the people that are even able to survive, the survivors, and if they're able to overcome, the overcomers. It's hard to not think that there's evil in the world when you see all of this, but there is also good in the world, because I look at such amazing people that are on the front lines of this work, that don't give up, the people that have blown the whistle, the survivors that have overcome. And so there is evil, but there is also good fighting back against that evil.
Let's dive into your testimony. And there's so much that I want to talk to you about, because I sat next to you in my first congressional testimony. This is not I don't know what your feelings are, and I'll ask you how you feel. This is just my feeling. I got done my testimony, and I remember calling my wife right after, because I was so not disillusioned, not shocked, but just appalled. And I thought, I need to talk to someone that was watching it so maybe I'm overstating how I felt. And my wife was like, no, everything you're saying is absolutely correct. And what I said to my wife was, I just wasted thousands of dollars flying here. I wasted my time. There is nothing going to be done. These politicians will do nothing, and they have proven to do nothing. However, somebody said to me after the fact, but you're looking at it from the perspective of you to them. This is going to go viral, and it has gone viral multiple times as your videos continually go viral, millions of hits getting spun, and that's just that goes into my algorithm, so I know it's even million more. How do you feel after you testify? Do you feel or share the same exasperation that I do, or do you have more hope?
It's a day-to-day feeling. Sometimes when the ripple effect happens, we don't get to be part of seeing that ripple effect. We are the ones that start that ripple, and then we move on to the next ripple that we're trying to start as far as positive impacts on the world and on, combating human trafficking. But there are times when you actually do get to see the impacts of those ripples. And when you have the people reach out to your website, to your social media, and thank you for standing up for the victims, standing up for, against human trafficking, and standing up for the American people and their voice, it is reinvigorating to realize that there are people that stand behind us, that stand beside us. And, maybe it isn't a message for the lawmakers necessarily, but it's for the lawmakers to hear and the American public to hear, so that the American public can also hold those lawmakers accountable. But from our hearing, JJ, it did put this hearing in place, because from our hearing, we were talking about the NGOs and their involvement in this entire process and the entire trafficking pipeline of children. And that is what set up this next hearing. And so, sometimes it is easy to get discouraged, and there are a lot of lawmakers that don't prioritize this issue in the way that it should, but there are a lot of lawmakers that do. And so, as you can see from the hearing, there were really good questions that came out of that hearing, but then there were also a lot of stonewalling from the other side. And it's really sad, because really, it's not a partisan issue. It should have been taken seriously by the other side. And it was an opportunity for the other side to actually show that they care, to take it seriously and say, we want to help find these kids too. And it would have been an opportunity for them to kind of show unity, that at least at a basic level, we all want to focus on finding these kids. And regardless of, if they want to say, regardless of who's to blame, we want to find these kids. They didn't do that, though. They stonewalled, they distracted, motion after motion, and the hearing was supposed to be 3 hours. It ended up being 7 with like a 2-hour recess. And so that really shows that they were not taking this opportunity seriously, this opportunity to work together to find these children and to represent their community as well, because there are children that went missing in every single one of those lawmakers' communities.
Well, you're absolutely correct on that their stonewall, they attacked the message. The messenger, not the message. And it is amazing to me, of everything in the world in politics, this should be, hey, we're all on board. We don't care. But what I found, and what you and I are going to discuss right now, is they're trying to block all of their evils, all of their crimes, everything they did on the Democrat Party for 4 years. Now, look, I'm not blaming the Democrat Party by themselves. The Republicans funded the majority of this for 2 years. But let's go back, before we get into the NGOs,
and talk about the 65,000 phone calls. And I think it was further in the testimony, correct me if I'm wrong, there was one person that was charged with answering the phone. You had 65,000 calls that came in. Can you tell my audience what we're talking about, this hotline that was given to these children that were trafficked into America?
Yeah, we found that information, and actually it was put out originally by Health and Human Services themselves back in April, that 65,000 calls went unanswered. Now, this fact went glossed over, not by the American people, but by the news cycle. The news cycle moves so fast that it glosses over these important things that the American public need to know. And so during that hearing was an opportunity to bring this fact back into the public eye and need to address it accordingly. So when you have 65,000 calls that go from August of 2023 to the inauguration, and what was relayed to us was that one person was assigned to these calls, to manage these calls. 65,000 isn't total calls received. That was the calls that were unanswered. So we don't even know how the calls that were responded to, if they were responded to appropriately. But 65,000 calls at a hotline, we wouldn't have even known this information if it wasn't for this administration taking the first 100 days extremely seriously, going through the Office of Refugee Resettlement, going through the Unaccompanied Children program with a fine-tooth comb, and finding these calls, going through each one and re-listening to it, even though time had passed, or not even re-listening to it, listening to it for the first time. And I had mentioned in my testimony a child that was rescued because of this administration's efforts to prioritize things that had been long forgotten and overlooked by the past administration. So this would have never come to light if it had been a different administration that would have taken office. It would have gotten worse. There probably would have been more unanswered calls. There would have been more open borders and more children flowing through the trafficking pipeline that was the Unaccompanied Children program.
Well, you make a great point. So 65,000 calls go unanswered. I want my audience to understand. You have toddlers, you have babies, toddlers, kids that are like 7, 8, 9, 10 to 16 or 17, but you take kids that are like, let's say 10 and below. They don't speak English. They're from third world countries. They don't have iPhones. They don't even have a rotary phone back in their old country. And Javier Becerra, who was the secretary of secretary of HHS, said, "Well, yeah, we give them a hotline. They can call us if they have a problem." And he was so flippant. They didn't even care. My point is, Ali, and you know this, 65,000 calls, that's a drop in the bucket. How many calls were wanting to be made but were never made? But the fact that you created a hotline and you didn't put anybody in to receive the calls. People think that we're making this up, Ali. I really do. I think people at first they go, "Oh no, she's crazy. Ali is crazy." Yeah. I know. Because people say that to me when I said, wait a minute, it's not 320,000 kids that are missing. They arrested and released over 550,000 unaccompanied alien children. Oh, you're crazy. No, I'm telling you the truth. And now RFK Jr. comes out and says exactly what you and I testified. Yeah, all the children are gone. We can't find any of them.
Yeah.
It's exasperating.
And it's a horrifying reality. But like you said, they attack the messenger. And they can't even refute the message itself. It's because it's such a horrifying reality that there's really nothing to say other than it can't be true. It's not true, because it's almost like someone's mind can't accept that it's true because it's such a horrifying reality. I mean, really, when you have to come face to face with the consequences of what happened the past 4 years under the past administration, and you hear the calls and pleas of children that were abused, exploited, both sexually and labor wise. I mean, it's a lot to digest, but denying it isn't going to make it less true. And I think the sooner that people accept that these are realities that you have seen firsthand, JJ, the realities that I've seen firsthand, this isn't some conspiracy theory that we're reading through articles and watching TikTok videos on. These are realities that we've seen firsthand. We've seen these cartel members. We've seen these gang members, these bad actors. We've seen these unaccompanied children. We've seen the women and men cross over weary and relay that they've been exploited. So it's just people need to start accepting the reality. And that's the only way things are going to change, is by that first step of acceptance and then deciding what we're going to do about it.
Well, you alluded to the NGOs. Let's dive into that, because this is what I know from actually working with the NGOs, the illegal alien NGOs, the illegal movement. I was forced to deal with them my last year in my job. They are the machine that drove all of the movement of men, women, children, and unaccompanied alien children under the guise of religion. Catholic Charities, Jewish Family Services, Lutheran Family Services, on and on and on. Every religious organization you can imagine. So I'm not picking on Catholic or Jews. Everybody is involved. Tell us what you know about the NGOs and how many of them were just fly-by-night fraudulent scams getting billions of dollars.
So it's interesting you bring up the faith perspective of that, because in the hearing, the other side was grasping onto that, which I had never seen before. I've never seen the other side really protect Christianity before. I mean, they've been advocates for other religions, but to say that this is anti-Christian, I'm like, whoa, I mean, I must be in a twilight zone right now. All of a sudden you're defending Christianity. Like, can we get that on video, please? But, it was really important for people to realize that it wasn't just religious organizations. There were many NGOs that were secular, and there were NGOs that operated in the right way. Now, the ones we're talking about, though, are the ones that weren't operating in the right way. They were lining their pockets. They were profiting off of contracts. They were getting contracts they weren't equipped to handle. They had promised a scope of deliverables and didn't follow up on what those deliverables were. And the government didn't track that. They didn't track that information. They were supposed to provide receipts for the money that they were spending. And there were a number of receipts that weren't accounted for, a bunch of money that wasn't accounted for, and it was a mess. So when you have NGOs charging the US government a steak and lobster diet while serving these unaccompanied children a rice and beans menu, I mean, that's a problem. And then you have these executives that are profiting and doubling and tripling their salaries in 2 to 3 years. It's one thing for them to adjust their salaries based on donations. Now, it might not be illegal, but it definitely is immoral. But when this is on taxpayer dollars, when these are grants, you have no business adjusting your salary based on taxpayer dollars. These are grants. These are projects, contracts that you said you were going to do X, Y, Z, and you better have done X, Y, Z. And if you didn't spend all that money should have gone back to the government. Any unspent funds that was specifically allocated for this work should have gone back. And much of it was parked in reserves. So again, there's so many problems. There was a lack of oversight, extreme lack of accountability. And then you have people like Andrew Lorenzen Strait. I don't know if you caught that on the hearing, but he literally said that the open border, this whole thing was a boom for business. Mm-hmm. So that's the mentality of the caliber of people we're trying to fight. Not every NGO is nefarious. Not every NGO did this, but a lot of them did. And the ones that did need to be accountable, held accountable. And that was part of the policy recommendations that I had made during the hearing, was that a forensic audit needs to be done on every single contract, starting with the ones $100 million and over. But I would like to see a forensic audit on every single contract that was given for the Unaccompanied Alien Children program. And I really think that we need to put proper processes and procedures in place, because as a taxpayer, I mean, if we went to the IRS and filed our taxes and said, well, yeah, I'm claiming this, but I don't have any receipts for it, I just want you to take my word on it, they would They would not treat the American public in the same way that they treated those NGOs. And so they need to be held to the same account that if they don't have receipts for it, then they need to reimburse those funds, because that is how you do business. That is how you maintain a contract.
Well, I will verify everything that you just said is factually 100% true. I interviewed several people that are, I would consider them very close friends that were in DHS during this time. And I asked them, he told me, okay, I was in charge of Jewish Family Services, but I paid everyone else too. And I was paying Jewish Family Services $600 million every 2-3 months. And I said, okay, 600 million? He goes, yeah. And then the vultures come out. All the NGOs underneath of them would come out, and I would send 5 million, 10 million, 2 million, whatever it was. And I said, okay. So you were in charge of Jewish Family Services. That means that you went and followed up, and they gave you the receipts, and then you were the guy. You're a Border Patrol agent, but you're telling me you were the accountant? And he laughed at me. He said, "Are you kidding me, dude?" He goes, "There's no accounting. Nobody calls me. I don't follow up and ask them." He goes, it's chaos. He's trying to explain to me, like in a big room, and everyone is just answering one fire after another and saying, okay, you need this much. And the rule was whatever they, being the NGOs, asked for, no matter the number, give it to them. Because the federal government needed the NGOs to be the trafficking arm of the federal government to move these people. It's crazy.
Well, and they knew that all they had was contractual accountability. All they could say for the NGOs was, oh, you didn't fulfill your contract. You know, what kind of accountability, what kind of consequences come from that? Maybe just cutting off the contract. But really, you know, what consequences can accountability even serve for a lot of these NGOs? So it's really unfortunate, but it's a learning opportunity for us that this has been going on for a very long time. I think that NGOs need to have full forensic audits for government contracts even before this unaccompanied alien children program. There's probably, you know, the system and the grant process is probably wrought with similar structures and infrastructures put in place. You have parent companies, you have the child companies, and all of these different shell organizations that fall under them. And so there's contracts that you're trying to now create a web of how they're all connected. So when you have one parent organization and then it trickles down to all of these sub children or sub organizations, and then all you have is a 990 to tie it all together, it makes it near impossible. And so really there needs to be a review and an overhaul of when we give out these contracts, how are we going to account for the money? Because that is what we need to do. We need a DOJ specifically for this process and to put procedures in place so that it never happens again.
I don't think they're doing that. And I don't know if they really want to, because it's going to trace back to a lot of politicians and politicians' families. I really believe that. I have a few more minutes with you, and I think this is a very important question, and I want to tackle this with you because I have my own thoughts and my own beliefs from a law enforcement perspective, and I would love to hear your solutions. So we have 550,000 children, okay, that gone. I believe that number, that's just what was arrested in the report data of the United States Border Patrol. My experience of being there for a year, and all of my colleagues tell me, JJ, you could testify that it's 1 million, maybe 1.5 million children. I mean, we can go that high, but let's just focus on the 550,000. Under Tom Homan, they have located 13,000 children. 442 of the sponsors of those 13,000 were trafficking children. They're going through the process of going to trial. What do we do about the 537,000 children that still are missing?
I know that we have, our federal resources agencies working together to find these children. But I really think that state and local governments need to step up and help, because it's only going to help speed up the process. It's going to help find these kids, make sure they're protected, make sure they're safe. So there needs to be a tight partnership with local, state, and federal agencies, because it can't just be one agency that takes this on. We were speaking with an HSI agent, and they were saying that they have their focus on finding these kids. And while they're focusing on that, CSAM has skyrocketed because they just can't be in two places at the same time. And CSAM being child sexual abuse material. So it's like trying to figure out, how do you address one fire when there's another one burning right next to you? And really, it has to be an all hands on deck approach. We have to have local, state, and federal agencies working together side by side, and not have these local jurisdictions and these state, sanctuary cities, sanctuary states blocking our ability not only to deport and secure these bad actors and get them out of the country, but to find these kids. And so really, that's where I would like to put the pressure, is on our local, state, and federal agencies to be able to find these kids as fast as we can, find the bad actors, get them out of our communities, get them out of our country, and then really start to hone in on how we can solution moving forward. But really, we got to stop the bleeding first and then address the wound.
Maybe a follow-up question to this is your time in Washington, D.C., your time in running your organization. Do you feel, if there is a sense of urgency within this administration, and I'm a huge Donald Trump, MAGA, Tom Homan guy, do you feel a sense of urgency?
I do. And I feel like they're being split in a million different ways, which is so unfortunate, because the past administration and other administrations leading up to it, and even Trump's first administration, he was so bogged down with all of the legal challenges and all of the delay tactics they were doing in his first administration that he couldn't get done as much as what he needed to do. And so really, I think that they are trying their very hardest. I think that dealing with trying to mitigate and stop foreign wars, trying to be the peacemaker around the world, trying to deal with our economy, deal with our mental health, deal with our national security, and then trying to find these children and make sure that the national security inside our borders is focused on. I think that they are so stretched thin. I think that we need to get these positions, these people sworn in as soon as possible. There's still many vacancies where they haven't been able to fill these positions. So we need to get those positions filled. We need Congress to do their job by codifying these executive orders. And so we need people to start stepping up and helping this administration, because they have a lot on their plate.
They do. He is pulled from a million different ways. I want to ask you one more question, and I want you to please tell our audience how we can help, how we can follow you and your organization. I see the original, they call it the original sin of America, is slavery. Okay, so that's a stain on the soul of America, and it will always be there. Slavery is horrible. I will argue, and I think I will argue effectively, that historians are going to look back once we uncover where all these children are. We find the shallow graves littering across America, because I believe a significant percentage of these children are already dead and buried or discarded, and their bodies will never be found. I believe this is the second sin on the soul of America. Do you think that that's hyperbole, that I'm overstating, or do you agree with that?
No, I agree with that. And that's why it brings tears to my eyes. Like, when we look back at horrific atrocities in our history, in the world's history, we look at the Holocaust, we look at slavery in the United States that led to the Civil War. And we ask ourselves, how did those people allow that to happen? Why didn't people stand up and fight? Why didn't anyone do anything? And then we look around today and we see just people doing the same thing. It's almost like human nature, that it's just, we look back and we say hindsight's 20/20, and why didn't they do anything? I think 20 years from now, they're going to say, why didn't more people do anything? Why were they complaining about who's going to pick their blueberries, rather than, is this person picking blueberries because they want to, or because they're being forced to pay a debt to the cartel? Like, why are we not asking the right questions? Why are we so focused on putting blame on everybody else and not really addressing the problem. And I hope that we can, moving forward, just really look at it with a fresh lens of we are not going to do nothing, like in history that it's shown that very few people stood up and did anything. I would like to see that the legacy the American people have is that more people stood up than ever before to combat this early on.
That's my prayer, that more people get a hold and do this, get information and then act. Because I get asked that all the time, Ali. What do I do? Well, the very first thing you can do is you can talk about it. And when your friends and family go, oh, I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear it. No, whatever. Like I played that video. I don't know if you heard of the video I played of the woman being raped or being, and I tell people, however uncomfortable you are just about talking about this, it's insignificant to what is happening to, we're just talking about unaccompanied alien children. We haven't even got into U.S. citizen children that are being destroyed. So the very first thing that has to happen is we have to have a bold and honest discussion and point out the problem and then come up with solutions and then act. I think people like you and your organization taking your time, talent, and treasure, going in front of Congress, people need to understand when you do that, you're extremely vulnerable. You're extremely like almost naked sitting there in front of those people because they possess all of the power. When you say, well, why didn't you say something because you can't. They close your microphone. So they get 5 minutes each and they just can excoriate you, call you all kinds of vile names, and you have no recourse. And what I find interesting, Ali, not interesting, but frustrating, is do you know, and I'm sure you do, it's a rhetorical question, the only people that swear an oath to tell the truth are the people testifying. The congressmen and women don't swear an oath in these hearings, so they can say whatever the hell they want to say. It's so hypocritical. The hypocrisy is so great. I applaud you, though. When I saw you go back in front of Congress, I was like, dang, there's Ollie. I better think about doing this again. But she's there and she's fighting and she's speaking the truth. So I applaud you. I really do applaud you because I know the space that you are working in is horrific. And I know police officers that work and FBI guys that work in this space, and it changes them. It changes them, and there's no way for it not to change you and people in this world. So thank you very much. Can you tell our audience how we can support you anyway? Do you have a website? Do you take donations? How is it that we can help? And that is one of the ways, instead of just being bold and speaking bold, is maybe $5. And people say, oh, $5 isn't that big a deal. It is when it adds up, when there's thousands and thousands of people. So where can we help you? Where can we follow you, Ollie?
That's a great question. And thank you so much for asking that, JJ. Many times in this work, we forget to mention how people can actually support our work and help move the needle and help us to move the needle forward. So I appreciate that. We have a website called guardagainsttrafficking.org. We also have all of our social medias, Guard Against Trafficking, and it can be found on our website. And if you are able to donate, whether it is, like you mentioned, $5 a month, we have a monthly option, we have a one-time option. You can donate through donor advised funds if you have, a financial advisor. So there's many ways to donate, and that really is the lifeblood of our organization, because the research we conduct is firsthand, in person, on the ground research. And what we do is we make that into education material, not only for communities, parents, but lawmakers, law enforcement. We actually just got back from a training a few weeks ago where we were training law enforcement agents, sex crimes detectives in 2 different cities in Virginia. And we were just educating them on what we're seeing on the ground, the human trafficking trends that we're seeing. And, some of them are familiar with some components of it, but not everything, because it's as soon as you think you know what a trafficker is doing, the patterns that they deploy, they shift, they change. And so we're trying to keep up with those patterns and strategies. And that's why it's hard to continue to update those educational materials, because it requires that consistent research and tracking of these bad actors and how they're employing and deploying some of these strategies. But your donations directly support that research, that education, and then that advocacy, which we take to local, state, and federal lawmakers to be able to educate them, consult on legislation, advise them on what they need to do, and really move the needle. Some of the things that we're trying to do is not just combat human trafficking, like you mentioned, with illegal crossings and foreign trafficking, but domestic trafficking. I'm sure you saw the Alabama case where it was 7 individuals that were holding 10 children in horrifying circumstances. Like, I was about to cry during that because they were chained, they were starved, they were raped. And that is a example of domestic trafficking. So it's not just illegal immigrants or migrants that we're focusing on. The American people need to educate themselves on what grooming looks like, which we do. We educate people on grooming. We educate people on the legislation that they can pass in their states on grooming to protect their children. We educate people on sextortion, the dangers that arise on the internet to protect their children. So it's a spectrum of training that we're trying to provide, from prevention all the way to law enforcement and lawmakers to enact legislation. And your support, yours, your audience, anyone that feels the desire to support our work, that would be very helpful, along with following our social media, sharing our message so that we can reach more people and wake more people up.
Ollie, thank you so much for your time. Very generous with your time today. And this is a topic that's not going away. And I hope to have you back and we can continually push the narrative, push the idea that we can't sit by and allow this sin to stain the soul of America any longer. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you so much for having me, JJ.
Thank you. Wow. That was a very informative and honest discussion. Ollie Hopper, president of Guard Against Trafficking. If you're thinking of making a donation to anything, I would put that up in the top, right at the top. Tough topic, tough subject. Unbelievable. I want you to go. I know it's hard to transition, right? Where do I talk about my sponsors? But I have to in order to stay on the air, pay the bills. Brandon House running Worldview Tube. You have to pay the bills. Like I tell my son, time, talent, or treasure. One of those, son, or maybe all three. Nothing is free in this world. So I want to tell you about shop at bellagrace.com. shopbellagrace.com/truth. I use their, look, I'm getting ready for this interview. Last night in my brain, I'm going through what I'm going to ask her. Can't sleep. Can't. This crap is in my brain. I can't. So I take their restorative sleep gummies. Go to shopbellagrace.com/truth. And I'm going to bring in my next guest. And it's Chris from sat123.com. And that's another sponsor we have. And in this very crazy time, you need to be prepared. Chris, welcome back to the show. How are you doing, mate?
I'm good, mate. Thanks for asking. Good to be here.
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry the interview with Ollie ran a little long, but I think it was an incredible topic that needs to be discussed, is child trafficking. Trafficking of anyone in our country is a stain on the soul of America. But I want to talk, because this is, and I sent you a text and said, hey, you need to come on because we have a tsunami. And I started to see these videos. I want to play 2 of these videos back to back. And I want you to react to it as somebody that is the representative for sat123.com and connectability, and how important it is to have connectability instead of being stuck in traffic for hours and hours as a tsunami comes and you're trying to reach your family and you can't get a hold of them. So Thomas, can you play both of these videos back to back if you wouldn't mind?
2 looking west. Beach.
So, Chris, that was Hawaii, and they sat there for hours. Like there was no movement. What do you do when you need, and you can imagine the amount of cell traffic. What do you do when you don't have connectability?
Well, yeah, look, you're absolutely right, JJ. When these cell towers cannot handle infinite number of incoming and outgoing calls, right? They have a limit. Once it's reached, anyone else who's trying to make a call or get a call, it won't happen. You know, so the cell towers get completely overloaded. This happens when you have any kind of mass casualty event or any kind of disaster. The towers may be working, but you can't get a call through and you can't send or receive text or anything else because everyone is trying to do the same thing at the same time as you, and the towers just start rejecting everything. So the only thing that you can do, the only way you can communicate is with a sat phone. You know, sat phone networks have never reached capacity, you know, and the story is long and drawn out, and I won't bore you with that, but there are not enough sat phones to create overcapacity. And, the Iridium network has over 70 high altitude satellites that can handle a huge amount of traffic, way more than can be created by the number of sat phones that they have out there. So a satellite phone, it may look like everything's fine, but if you can't make a receive a call, then you don't know what's going on, right? You're not getting data, you're not getting anything to your cell phone because everything is overloaded. A satellite phone will give you that connectability, JJ, always.
And it's important. I'm sitting there watching that, and I always think when I see these natural disasters or man-made natural disasters, I think of Sat 123 because I'm sitting there, I'm watching this, and I'm thinking, what if I was in that traffic and there's nowhere to go, and I'm 10 miles from my house? And I'm trying to coordinate with my wife and my son to where to meet me. But I can't. Every time I hit my phone, my text, my phone call, my email, everything just gets obliterated. How insane that must feel, Chris. How helpless that must feel. And then I tell people on my show all the time, I have a sat phone. I work with and purchase things from sat123.com because I want to be prepared. I want to be prepared for all that, but mainly because I don't trust the government as much and I don't trust society right now. But connectability is everything. And I believe that it is the most important thing. So I have a minute left, Chris. I would like to just tell my audience, because when they hear sat phone, Chris, they think, I don't have $1,500. I don't have $300 a month for cell service. I just don't do it. But that's not true, is it?
No, it's not. Sat123.com. We're the only provider in the country that offers a free satellite phone with activation. You don't have to spend $1,000 to $2,000 like everywhere else. You get a phone for free with activation. You're paying as little as $85 a month, JJ, and that gives you up to 150 minutes. You can even roll those over if you don't use them. So, look, this is why we are still the biggest in the game. Because we have taken care of our customers. We eat the cost of that phone because we know we'll make it back. We got a good chance of making that money back, but we want to make sure as many people as possible have emergency communication, and that you shouldn't be cut off from this kind of communication just because you don't have enough money. Everyone should be able to have and afford a satellite phone. And, if you have one and your family, your kids have one, your wife has one, you are always going to be connected to your family, no matter what else is going on. Unlike those poor people stuck in that endless traffic. And, luckily things didn't turn out that bad, but it certainly could have gone the other way.
Yes, it could. Chris, thank you so much for taking time again. I just believe in your company. I think your company is excellent. I like everyone to call that number 941-841-0844, and you're going to get someone that speaks English, which is shocking. And I think that's great. I don't know if they're going to call you mate, but they're going to speak some form of American English. Hey, Chris, thank you so much. I appreciate your time always. Have a great weekend.
You too, mate. Thanks. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye. I can talk to him forever. He has a great, just a great accent. Be prepared. Go to sat123.com/JJ. Be prepared. Help out people and organizations like Ollie. But ultimately, Please get in the game. There's so much that needs to be done. Be bold, speak boldly, and never apologize for your God-given beliefs that you hold so tightly. And be ready to fight for the soul of America, because we're in a war.
All right, welcome to Code Blue. It is August the 1st, 2025. So I have some pretty big news to talk about here with Dr. John and Brooke. We have a new head of the CDC, Susan Menace. And so, Brooke, what do you know about this this new CDC director?
Well, you know, I was hoping that we could have people in charge of things that are outside of the, of the norm, people that are have worked in healthcare and actually taking care of patients, but it just doesn't seem like we're getting that. This person has been in the system, in the CDC and FDA, in that government system her whole career, and I just don't. I'm a little disappointed. I was hoping we would get someone that would have some real world experience caring for patients.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So there was Dave Weldon, Dr. Dave Weldon from Florida was on the list, and Trump took him off back several months ago because basically the senators raised questions and concerns about his vaccine status as far as what he believed in vaccines. So Dave Weldon would have been a good guy. But it looks like Trump said, well, I'm gonna do a sure thing. And so he went with this Susan Menace. Now she is not a medical doctor. She's it's the first time, I believe, in more than 70 years that there has not been a medical doctor leading the CDC. She is a microbiologist and an immunologist, a PhD. And so basically those specialties revolve around, viruses and bacteria, and of course the immune system and vaccines. And so she was the deputy director for the ARPA-H, which is the Advanced Research Projects Agency for Healthcare, which was cutting edge biomedical and health research. So she's been on record as saying that she's a big advocate for wearable technology. And, this is something Kennedy has talked about, and a lot of us are concerned about that. And, also with this wearable technology, there's remote patient monitoring. And so all this is a concern for us. And some of the quotes she had, she said her goal was to restore trust in the CDC. And she would do that by, being transparent and having available to the public all the I guess she's talking about the studies, the gold standard science, she called it. She also said she's going to be working more to respond rapidly to disease outbreaks. And she said, we know it is coming. We may not know when, but